My name is John Mason, 42 years old, a software developer living in Austin, Texas. I grew up in a conservative Protestant family in the suburbs of Dallas, where Sunday church services and Bible lessons were a regular part of life. However, as I entered adulthood, I gradually drifted away from these beliefs. Modern life, work pressures, and advances in technology led me to view concepts like the soul or religion as irrational. I took pride in my practicality. A high-paying job in software development, a spacious house filled with modern amenities, and a brand-new Tesla Model S were symbols of my success. Yet, despite appearances, I felt a void. After my divorce a few years ago, my relationships with family and friends had grown distant. Most of my time after work was spent gaming alone or immersing myself in tech podcasts. One day, after a particularly stressful week at work, I decided to go for a jog to clear my mind. Jogging was my go-to method to calm my thoughts when overwhelmed. I chose a trail running through a local park, lined with tall trees and fresh air, thinking it would help me relax. I jogged at a slow pace, listening to the birds chirping and the rustling of leaves in the breeze. As I approached an intersection near the park's exit, I saw an SUV speeding toward me. I trusted the driver would stop at the crossing, but instead, the vehicle suddenly accelerated. I barely had time to extend my hand reflexively before feeling the impact. Everything happened too fast. I felt the forceful impact as my body was violently thrown into the air. For a brief moment, it was as if time itself slowed down. I could hear the screeching tires of the SUV, the abrupt silence of the birds, and even the distant echoes of voices fading away. My surroundings became a blur, and I could feel the rush of wind as gravity pulled me down. When I hit the ground, the impact jolted through my entire body. My head struck the pavement with a deafening thud, and the sound of my running helmet cracking echoed like a final toll of a bell. Pain coursed through me as darkness closed in, swallowing every sound and sensation. I opened my eyes, and the world around me had transformed into something entirely unfamiliar yet profoundly serene. The air was imbued with a sense of warmth, carrying a faint, sweet fragrance that reminded me of spring mornings. I was no longer in the park. I stood in an expansive meadow bathed in soft golden light. There was no visible sun, but the light seemed to emanate from everywhere. The scenery felt dreamlike, yet more vivid and profound than anything I had ever seen. My first sensation was one of absolute peace, a tranquility I had never experienced in life. Suddenly, a voice spoke, warm, yet gentle. "John, this is not a dream." I turned and saw a tall man with silver-white hair wearing a radiant robe. Behind him stood a large cross, emitting a brilliant glow, as if to remind me of something sacred. His gaze brought me a sense of comfort and love. "You are in a place where God wants you to visit," he said. "There are some lessons you must learn before you return." He led me to a gentle hill. From its peak I could see a vast river, its surface as still as glass. Surrounding the river were white lilies, which my mother had often said symbolized the presence of heaven. He told me, "Sit by this river and touch its surface. Each droplet holds a fragment of your life's memories." I placed my hand in the water, and instantly the surface rippled as though it were alive. A kaleidoscope of images emerged, each more vivid than the last, as though I were watching a film projected onto the water. But it wasn't just visual. I could feel every emotion tied to those memories as if I were reliving them. I saw myself as a young boy helping a classmate who was being bullied. I relived the joy and relief my friend felt, but I also noticed the warmth in my own heart. Next, the water shifted, darkening slightly as it unveiled moments of regret and mistakes I had buried deep within me. I saw myself during an argument with my ex-wife, my harsh words cutting through her like daggers. I could feel the weight of her sorrow, a sensation so palpable it made my chest tighten. The ripples expanded, revealing the ripple effects of my actions, how my anger influenced not only her, but others around us. I saw myself arguing with my ex-wife, saying harsh words I now regretted. But this time, I didn't just see it from my perspective. I felt the pain she had endured. It pierced my heart like a sharp blade. The guide pointed to the cross behind him and said, "Every action, every word you speak creates an impact. They can bring joy or pain not only to others, but also to yourself. God has given you the gift of choice, and you must learn to use it with love." He then led me into a forest with towering trees. At its center was a massive map suspended in midair. He explained, "This is the map of your life. It shows every path you have taken and those you could have taken. Ultimately, all paths lead to learning and returning to God." I saw on the map the turns I had missed and the decisions I never made. I realized that while life is full of choices, what truly matters is not the path, but how I walk it. Finally, he said, "John, it is time for you to go back." I protested, "But I don't want to go back. This place is so peaceful, so complete." He smiled gently, placing his hand on my shoulder. Warmth radiated from his touch, not just physically, but spiritually, dissolving my fears like morning dew under the sun. The light from his hand seemed to seep into me, bringing a sense of clarity and reassurance that I was not alone in my journey. You were created by God's will, and you must fulfill the purpose He has given you. A brilliant light enveloped me. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a hospital bed. The first sounds I heard were the steady beeps of a heart monitor and the soft voice of a nurse checking on me. My body ached, but my soul felt strangely at ease. I realized that next to me was an old friend, Mark, who I hadn't spoken to in years. He told me he had been passing by the park and had called for help. I couldn't find the words to thank him. I just held his hand tightly as tears streamed down my face. Returning to life, I was no longer the same person. I began focusing more on rebuilding relationships. First, I called my ex-wife. We talked for hours, and I apologized for the pain I had caused her. To my surprise, she not only accepted my apology, but also opened the door for us to be friends again. It was the first step in learning to mend past mistakes. Next, I reconnected with my family. Every weekend I visited my parents, helping with small chores around the house. Initially, they seemed surprised by my change, but after a few weeks, I noticed they were happier. I even sat down with my father to reminisce about childhood memories I had once taken for granted. That moment made me realize the importance of preserving family bonds. I also started volunteering at a local church. Every Sunday morning I attended services, sitting quietly in the back pew as the choir's hymns echoed through the sanctuary. I listened to sermons that seemed to speak directly to my heart, each word resonating with a newfound depth. During moments of prayer, I felt an overwhelming sense of connection, not just to God, but to the community around me, as if I were part of a greater purpose. Being part of the church community made me realize I was not alone and that I could play a small role in spreading God's love. Most importantly, I learned to slow down and be present in every moment. Instead of constantly thinking about the next goal or being consumed by technology, I spent time walking in the park, enjoying the sounds of nature, and simply breathing. These moments brought me a profound peace I had never known before. Now every day I remember the river of memories and the lessons I learned. I understand that every choice, every action, holds the power to create positive change. And that is how I choose to live, with love, compassion, and a commitment to making life better for myself and those around me.